Hello everyone and welcome to our 11.8b volume of spheres and composite figures notes. And so we're going to get started with the formula for volume. Remember, it's always going to be in units to the third power, units cubed. So volume is units cubed. And we're going to look at spheres and composite figures. So what is our formula for the volume of a sphere? The volume of a sphere is going to be 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. Another way you might see this presented online is 4/3 pi r cubed. That is the exact same thing. Where the only variable that you need to know is your radius, because the radius determines the size of the sphere. So what does that mean about a hemisphere? Well, a hemisphere we know is going to be half of a sphere. So you could do this in a few ways. But what we're going to do is we're going to find the volume of the full sphere, 4 pi r cubed divided by 3, and then we're just going to take whatever that answer is, and we're going to divide that answer by 2 because this is just going to be half of a sphere. That ends up being 2 pi r cubed divided by 3, and so we're just going to go ahead and use our formula and then divide by 2 at the end. So a hemisphere is half of a sphere. So it says directions, solve for the indicated values, leave in terms of pi. And so for our first problem, we're just going to go ahead and plug this directly in. Our radius is 9. So for my volume formula, I'm going to have 4 pi 9 cubed divided by 3. And so we started class today by using the button for cubed. And so if you do not know where that's at, let me go ahead and scroll down and get that for y'all. Here is my calculator. I just have a picture of it, so I'm going to put this on here. And so you know where the squared button is. We've worked with the squared button often. And so when you cube something, squaring something is where you raise it to the second power. Using this x squared button is what most of y'all use. We're going to use this button that has the little arrow up, that little caret. That just is going to show that you're going to raise something to whatever power you want. So when we go to type this in, we're going to leave these in terms of pi, it says. So we're going to type in 4 times 9 cubed, and you're going to click enter. And so when you do that, 4 times 9 cubed, it looks like this. You would write, it's what it pops up like on the screen, 4, and then times, it's a star, 9, and then you're going to raise that to the third power by putting that little arrow up button. You raise that to the third power. And then you click enter, and it's going to give you 2916. And then whenever you get 2916, we're going to divide that by 3. So 2916 divided by 3, that is going to give me 972. So 972 pi centimeters cubed. So that is the volume of that shape. So we are leaving that in terms of pi, and so we're just using that new cubed button. And so 972 pi is my volume of this shape, of this sphere. Okay, so how can I make this a little bit harder? We're on the next problem. They give you a diameter. The 33 goes all the way across. So if my diameter is 33, what is my radius going to be? My radius is going to be 16.5 centimeters. So I'm going to cross out the 33 so I don't actually accidentally use that, because in my formula I need the radius. So that's going to be 4 pi r cubed, so that's going to be 4 times pi times 16.5 cubed divided by 3. That's going to be my volume. And so again, I'm going to type in, leave it in terms of pi, so I'm going to type in 4 times 16.5 cubed, 4 times 16.5, use that little arrow button, raise it to the third power, click enter. That gives you 17,968.5, and then we divide that by 3. And when you do that, after you divide by 3, you're going to get this number, which is 5,989.5 pi centimeters cubed. So we're leaving our answers in terms of pi. So that is the volume of that sphere. Okay, so y'all could do a million of these problems. The only way I could really make this harder as far as giving you a diagram is giving you a diameter over a radius. And so that part is going to be the easier part, because all you really need is the radius every time. The way that they can make this a little bit harder, though, is to ask you to find a diameter or a radius given a volume. So remember, if our formula for volume of a sphere is 4 pi r cubed divided by 3, but on this problem, they give you a volume. They say, what is the diameter of a sphere, sorry guys, with a volume of 972 pi feet cubed. So what I can do is actually take that answer for volume and plug it into the formula. Okay, so that's the answer that they got. Their volume was 972 pi, and I can set that equal to the formula, which is 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. And so in order to solve for the diameter, I'm going to first need to find the radius, and that radius is located within the numerator of my formula. And so in order to work with the numerator, I need to get rid of that denominator by multiplying by 3 on both sides. So when we multiply by 3, that's going to be 3 times 972. So you're going to type that into your calculator. Let's leave this in terms of pi. There's a reason we're doing that for now. 3 times 972 is going to be 2916 pi. I'm looking ahead and just seeing that there's going to be a pi that cancels out from both sides. You could have gone ahead and typed in the pi, and it would work the same way, and so that's totally fine. Okay, so now we want to get r cubed by itself, and so on both sides, we're going to divide by 4 pi. And since I'm dividing by more than one thing at a time, I'm going to put it in parentheses so that my calculator knows I'm dividing by both of those things. So make sure you put that in parentheses. If not, you'd have to do divided by 4 and then divided by pi. And so the 4 pi cancels out on this side, and so now I have r cubed is on one side by itself. The pi's cancel out, so you can either do that from the beginning, go ahead and see that the pi's cancel out, or you could also go ahead and type it into your calculator, and the calculator will cancel it out for you. So 2916 divided by 4 is going to give me 729, but 2916 pi divided by 4 pi is also going to give me 729. So either way, that's totally fine. And so this is what r cubed is. And so we did a little intro lesson at the very beginning of class on how to take the cubed root of something in your calculator. So I'll show you how to do that now. You take the cubed root of both sides, which is just going to give me my radius. So we want to type this into our calculator, cubed root of 729. So I'm going to come back over here to my picture. Cubed root of 729, if you look at the calculator, you've got, this is the square root button and the squared button. The button above it is to raise it to any power you want and to take any root you want. That's the X root button, which takes any root you want. So we want to take the cubed root. So before you type in that button, you're going to click second. But before we even do that, we want to tell our calculator, hey, I want to take the cubed root and not the square root or the fifth root. So you're going to type a 3 first to let my calculator know, hey, I want to take the cubed root. So you type a 3. So type 3, and then you're going to click second. So click second. And then you're going to do the X root button. And so what pops up looks like this. And so that just shows your calculator, I'm taking the cubed root of this number. And so then you're just going to type 729. Cubed root of 729. So when you do that, 3, second, X root button, 729, that is going to give me 9. So my radius is going to be equal to 9. So what is my diameter? If my radius is 9 feet, my diameter is going to be equal to double that, which is going to be 18 feet. That's feet to the first power because we measure a radius and a diameter is going to be that one dimension. Okay, so diameter is going to be equal to 18 feet. So that looks really scary, but your calculator is doing most of the work for you on that problem. All right, let's do another one of those, just because that's not easy. We're getting used to this. A soccer ball has a volume of 350, so they give you the answer for the volume, and it's not 350 pi. This one's just 350 inches cubed. So 350 inches cubed. They give you the volume. When it's fully inflated, what is the radius of the ball and what is the diameter? So again, if this is my formula, I can set 350 equal to the formula, 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. And so the first step, just like before, is we want to get into the numerator because we want to solve for the radius. So we want to get rid of this the denominator of dividing by 3. So what's the opposite of dividing by 3? It's going to be multiplying by 3 on both sides. So I'm going to do 3 times 350. That is going to give me 1050. So I've got 1050 equals 4 pi r cubed. So I'm closer to having r cubed by itself on one side, but I'm going to have to divide by 4 pi on both sides. Again, I'm going to put that in parentheses since I'm dividing by more than one thing at a time. And on this problem, like on the previous one, pi over pi canceled out. This problem, that's not going to happen. So I'm going to have to do 1050 divided by parentheses 4 pi. So make sure you include those parentheses if you're doing it in one step. That is going to give me a number on my calculator. So when you do that, this is what pops up on your calculator, 83. Let me go ahead and write it down. 83.556345. We want to take that number and we want to that to be the answer that pops up. So 83.556 ... That is what r cubed is equal to. And so we want to take the cubed root of that. Well, remember that whenever you take the cubed root of that, we're going to recall that answer. so cubed root. And so when you do that on your calculator, the cubed root, what just popped up was my answer. And so when we want to recall that, I type a 3 first. I do second x root, and I want to recall that previous answer that was 83.556. So remember to recall an answer, I'm going to click second, and then I'm going to recall that previous answer. It's going to pop up as ANS, which just means that's that 83.556 number. Okay, so when you do that, you're going to take the cubed root, so x root, 3x root, second answer. And that's going to give me a radius of about 4.4 inches, which would give me a diameter of about 8.8 inches. Okay, so I found this diameter, and then I found this radius, and then I doubled it to find the diameter. Okay, so that looks really scary, but that is very similar to what we've done before with working with formulas. I do have a challenge question on here for you. It says, what is the volume of a sphere if the surface area given is 804.2? So what is my surface area formula? Let's do that part first. Well, the surface area of a sphere, you won't have to memorize this, this will be on your formula sheet, is 4 pi r squared. So what they're giving me is a surface area, so I'm going to plug it in for the surface area. 804.2 is equal to 4 pi r squared. Ultimately, they want to know what the volume is. That's what this question asked for. But in order to find the volume, I need the radius. So we're going to solve this question for the radius. So this time, I don't have a denominator to get rid of, so I can immediately go ahead and divide by 4 pi on both sides. Again, make sure you put that in parentheses. And so when I do that, the 4 pi cancels out on the right-hand side, and I'm going to get 804.2 divided by parentheses 4 pi. That's going to give me 63.996, so I'm going to write that down, but we're going to have that stored in our calculator, 63.996, and it keeps going. That's what r squared is equal to, so I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So again, remember that when you do that, when you type in square root, your calculator is going to go blank. So just like before, y'all are used to typing in square root, you'll click second, you'll hit the square root button. Well, what happens is that number goes away. So to recall that answer, that 63.996 answer, we're going to click second in blue, and we're going to recall that answer. So it will go ANS. You'll click enter, and it's taking the square root of that number, the 63.996 number. So square root, second answer, and it's going to give me a radius of about, it's going to round to 8.0, 7.999762666. That's my radius. So we're going to go ahead and round that to about 8. You could also wait until the end to round. And then we're going to take that and we're going to plug it into our formula for the volume of a sphere, 4 pi r cubed. So that's going to be 4 times pi times 8 cubed over 3. Okay, so 8 cubed, I'm going to go ahead and round that, is 512 times 4 is 2048 divided by 3 gives me 682.6 repeating pi feet cubed for my volume. That was a challenge because you first had to get the radius before you could find the volume. Okay, so that was a 2-part. You had to get the first part right in order to get the second part right. So 682.6 pi feet cubed. All right, the last part is going to be my composite figures. And composite figures originally seemed scary, but when we're finding the volume of composite figures, we're just adding the two figures together. So what two figures do I have in this picture? Well, I have my volume on top. I have the volume of a pyramid, so I'm going to do that in pink. On bottom, I have the volume of this cube, which is also known as a square prism. So I'm going to go ahead and just write that, the volume of the prism. And so we just need to go get our formulas, and you can look at your formula sheet for this. The volume of a pyramid is going to be equal to its base times its height divided by 3. So what is its base? Even though it's not written, we know that that shape is going to be congruent to this shape right here. So that's going to be a 10 by 10. So that base is going to be 100. I'm going to multiply that by its height, which on the pyramid is 13. And then I'm going to divide that by 3. So 100 times 13 divided by 3. That is going to give me a volume for the pyramid of 433.3 repeating meters cubed. Now I'm going to find the volume of the prism. Well, volume of a prism is just going to be equal to base times height. And so that we've already calculated the base, that's going to be 100 times its height, which for this shape on the bottom is going to be 10. So 100 times 10. That gives me a volume for the prism of 1,000 meters cubed. So what do I want to do when I want to find the volume of the composite figure? I just add together the volume of the pyramid plus the volume of the prism. So when we add those together, we're going to get 1,433.3 repeating meters cubed of volume. We just added together our two shapes' volume. So composite means that you have put things together. So it's kind of like a composer puts music together. A composite figure is multiple figures put together. Okay. On this next shape, let's see what we've got. We've got the volume of a hemisphere on the top. So I'm going to do the volume of the hemisphere. So what we said to do is to do the volume of the sphere divided by 2. And then on the bottom, we're going to find the volume of the cone. So the volume of the cone. So I have two different shapes, and I'm finding the volume of each, and then I'm just going to add those together. All right, so the hemisphere formula is going to be 4 pi r cubed divided by 3. And so we need our radius. So what is our radius going to be? Our radius is going to be 3 centimeters. So I don't need the 6. I don't need the diameter. So that's going to be 4 pi 3 cubed over 3. We're going to take that, and then we're going to divide that by 2, since I'm only working with half of the sphere. So 4 times 3 raised to the third power divided by 3 gives me 36 pi. And I'm going to divide that 36 pi by 2 since it's only half. And when I do that, I should get 18 pi. So what is my volume of the sphere? Volume of the sphere is going to be equal to 18 pi centimeters cubed. Okay, so let's switch colors just because I don't love that all of a sudden changed to blue. Okay, so then we're going to look at our volume of our cone. Well, the cone is on the bottom. What's the volume of the cone formula? That is going to be equal to base times height divided by 3. We know that since it's a circle, that's going to be pi r squared, so pi times 3 squared, times our height. Well, what's our height of that cone? The height says it's going to be 10 centimeters, so that's going to be times 10 and then divided by 3. Okay, so that's going to be 3 squared times 10 divided by 3 gives me 30 pi for the volume of the cone. So what do I, 30 pi centimeters cubed. And so what do I do to find the total volume of the composite figure? I'm just going to add together these two volumes. And so when I do 30 plus 18, I get 48 pi centimeters cubed of volume. So that's my composite volume. When I put those together, that's how much volume was in the hemisphere plus the cone. Okay. Last one, we talked about this in class, that you can cut this either way you want. So you can make this two prisms that are standing up and down, or you can make this one prism stacked on top of the other. Since the other problems are stacked top and bottom, I'm going to stack these top and bottom as well. Okay. And so that is going to be the volume of the prism on top in pink plus the volume of the prism on bottom in blue. So the volume of the prism at the top in pink, and then the volume of the prism on bottom in blue. So when we start with the one that's on top, this is a little bit interesting. It's just going to be base times height. But when you go to find the area of this base, we've got to remember the dimensions. So this is a 4 by what? What is this piece going to be? This piece is facing the same way as this piece, so that's going to be a 4 by 2. We can get that 2 foot and copy it to the top. So that's going to be 8 times, what is your height? Well, the height is not 8. The height of the whole thing is 8. But the height of this piece is 3. So what is 8 minus 3? 8 minus 3 is going to give me 5. So my height of this one is just going to be 5. 8 minus 3 gives me 5. 8 times 5 gives me a volume of 40 feet cubed for that pink prism. Let's do that again for the bottom prism. That is going to be base times height. So that's going to be a 2 by 6. What is 2 by 6? That's going to be 12. What is the height of the blue prism? That's going to be 3. So that's going to be 36 feet cubed. And of course, I'm just going to add them together. I'm going to do the pink prism plus the blue prism. That is going to give me a total of 76 feet cubed of volume for this composite figure. All right, so your assignment is on the back. If you are having trouble with raising things to the third power or raising or cubing things, you can always YouTube a video of like TI-30X cubing or TI-30X cubed rooting. And then if you want to come by my room and see me before the test this week, if you're struggling with that, you can also do that. All right, I hope you're having a great day.